So welcome to the Book Company. I'm Daniel, one of the booksellers. It is day 4,966 of us being in business. We are honored to welcome back for the first time in 3 years, Robert Crais, the author of 22 previous novels, 18 of them featuring P.I. Elvis Cole and Joe Pike. Before writing his first novel, Crais spent several years writing scripts for major television series such as Hill Street Blues, Cagney and Lacey, and Miami Vice. He was named a Grand Master by the Mystery Writers of America and has received multiple awards for his work. Tonight, we are super honored for him to be in conversation with local writer Nick Petrie of the Peter Ash series. The book is getting wonderful reviews and blurbs, including this from one Mr. Nick Petrie. Robert Crais's latest Elvis Cole novel is blazing fast read with a twisty plot, but it's Crais's empathy for his characters that make this work shine especially bright. Whether you're a new Crais fan or a longtime fanboy like me, Racing the Light showcases all the qualities that make Robert Crais one of our foremost crime writers. We're super honored to have them both here tonight. Please give them yet another big hand. Thank you.
Well, thanks to Daniel for that introduction. Are we here? Yeah, we got it. Okay. And thanks to Boswell for having us, and thanks to Robert Crais for coming all the way to Milwaukee, leaving sunny California to come here.
I got nothing better to do. No, I love coming to Milwaukee. This is great, man. Milwaukee's been one of my mystery writer hometowns since the beginning of my career with Rich Katz bookstore. And what, you can't hear me?
There we go.
How about now? I'm not going to repeat that. No, Milwaukee's been one of my go-to stops. I know there's so many familiar faces here because I've been seeing you guys for what, 28, 25 years. So it's like home. I come back, it's like home.
And how many of you guys, it's Mystery One, right? How many
Yeah.
folks were patrons of Mystery One back in the day?
See?
All right.
Look at these.
There we
I
go.
mean, these are OG
There we go.
people.
OG people.
Yeah.
All right. So we are here to talk about Racing the Light, which I really enjoy. We're going to talk a little about the book. We'll talk a little about writing, but what we also want our questions from you guys. So think of some questions, and if you have something really burning, just raise your hand, and we'll go there.
Or even sort of a benign disinterest. But
It doesn't have to be burning,
right. We're good with anything because we riff on it and it ends up being better.
right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So we were talking about this earlier. To me, this feels like such a kind of a classic Elvis Cole, world's greatest detective. Kind of really goes back to your early books, those pre-LA Requiem books. It's got that classic start, right? Elvis is in his office. Somebody walks in, hands him an envelope full of money and says, my son is missing.
Classic PI opening.
Yeah. So tell us about that book, and were you going for, was that classic piece in your mind?
No. Well, maybe because I had actually been, I'll give you the backstory. I was here 3 years ago for a dangerous man, and Nick and I did this then. That was August of 2019. So 2 months later, on October 1st of 2019, I was with the chief of cardiac surgery, Senior Sinai Hospital, and he looked at me, he said, "You got to have a quadruple bypass immediately or you'd be dead within 2 months." Yeah, how's that for a hook? So yeah, I was shocked too, because I hadn't had a heart attack. I had no symptoms that I recognized as symptoms. And if you follow me, on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, I'm kind of like a fitness junkie. I strap on a heavy pack and I'm hiking the canyons of Los Angeles every morning. I've been a gym rat for years. I've played sports for years. Aches and pains are a way of life, right? You do anything active like that, you got aches and pains. I got a shot rotator cuff. I mean, I'm a mess. So I thought I was the picture of health until I wasn't. So on October 3rd, I went in and I had it done, quadruple bypass, right? They split me open, stopped my heart, and I spent 6.5 hours on a table as they grafted, 4 new pipes around my heart to make it healthy again. Recovery was not fast or easy. And Nick and I were talking earlier. I told him, for me, it led to sort of like a coming to Jesus moment. It led to depression. I had already been working on a book that was to be the new Elvis Cole novel. It would have been the one now. And as I recovered in the following weeks, I tried to look at it again and return to it, and I just couldn't. I mean, it felt totally dead to me, as if someone else had been writing it, which is like funny for me to think about, because prior to that, when I was working on it, I was every bit as excited about it and inspired by it as any of the books that have been published. But after this, it was just dead, like this other person had written it, and it had never been a part of my life. Now, honestly, I do not know why. My conjecture is it's a combination of things: the depression, the massive, I not only did I have the quad, but then there were complications. I went back to the hospital for 2 more procedures. So the massive amounts of anesthesia, the narcotics, because I was on all kind of painkillers, that any painkiller they make, they were pumping it into me. Maybe all that stuff. Again, Nick and I were just talking about this. When your stories are coming alive, they're in your brain. They're living in your cortex somewhere, and maybe all that stuff shorted it out. I don't know, but I couldn't go back to it.
Well, it's a fragile thing
It's
to be building a story. The line I use is, it's like having a sandcastle in my head, and it
Yes.
doesn't take much to kind of wash it away.
Yeah, it's almost like spider webs. It's sandcastle's a good thing, and the water's coming in constantly, pooling around it, trying to get into it, like the day-to-day intrusions of your life. Well, this was a big damn intrusion. And I went through this period that literally went on for several months of, maybe I'll just quit. I didn't seem to, I couldn't write anymore. I felt like I didn't want to write anymore. I told my wife, I said, shit, maybe I'll just retire, hang it up. Goodbye, Elvis and Joe. But I've been doing this for 47 years. I mean, what am I going to do? Stare at the TV all day? Which, by the way, in this period, that's what I was doing. But that's part of the story here too, because the toughest part of my recovery was the sense that I had that my body had betrayed me, had kept a secret from me. Because remember, every morning I'm getting up, man, and I get up super early, 4 a.m. I'm out of the house at 4:30. So I go in the dark to these canyons. I put on this pack, and I'm hustling away, climbing hills in the dark, 4 a.m., 4:30. And I felt great, by the way. I mean, I felt terrific. And then out of the blue, bam, all the cardiologists and whatnot, they dropped their truth bomb on me. Hey, dude, dead by Christmas. So I'm also watching, January, we get the COVID, right? That bomb drops. And since I'm doing nothing but watching TV, I'm doom scrolling the TV news, right? Here was my remote: CNN, Fox, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, just like that. I had writer friends. Maybe you're one of them, but I don't know. But who tell me, this lockdown is great, man. I mean, I have so much free time. I'm going to write 2 books, 3 books this year. I'm doing nothing but watching TV. The body counts, hospitalization counts, all this stuff. And I'm also, because I'm watching all this stuff, I'm getting angry because there's no clear, truthful, honest, legitimate message about all this. The COVID, where did it come from? Lab, not lab. Who's responsible for this? Can we cure it? Did we all wake up in a dystopian science fiction movie, written by Stephen King. We're all going to die from this stuff. And there are so many divergent points of view at it. I actually began to relate it to myself. As my body had kept secrets from me, these people are keeping secrets from me. And how important is it to know what's real here? To drop it even into another weird pill. I'm watching this. I'm deciding I'm never going to write again. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, the United States Navy releases videos of UFOs. Right? These aren't pictures taken by some guy in a cornfield in Iowa with his iPhone. Look what I saw. You know, this is the United States Navy. And they're on TV saying, well, yeah, our Top Gun graduate F-18 pilots have been trying to engage with these things. You can see them right there. And, you know, we can't,
But they're
keep
way
up.
too fast.
They're
Yeah.
way too
Yeah,
fast for
change
us,
direction,
and jamming our equipment and all this other stuff. Like, I needed that on top of everything else. So I live in Los Angeles, and in Los Angeles, in the past 2.5 years, we have 16 city council members who run our city. In the past 2.5 years, 3 of them have been indicted on corruption, pay-to-play scheme charges. That's not to mention the latest 3 for the secret recording about all this horrible racist shit they've been yakking with each other. These are actually the worst people in the world, right? The worst people in the world. And it felt to me like, forget the science fiction movie, did I wake up and now I'm in the film Chinatown with all these corrupt slime bags that are running our city. Well, there I am going along thinking I'll never write again. And all of this nonsense that was going on, I began to obsess on it because I imagined the guy who I consider the main character in the book, Josh Schumacher. What I liked about him, and it came out of first the UFO thing, but then applied to everything else. He's a podcaster that no one listens to because he believes weird stuff. But the truth is extremely important to him. Uncovering the secrets is extremely important to him. And once I had Josh, I began to feel alive again. I actually, you know, at the beginning, I couldn't sit at my laptop for more than 10 minutes. I really couldn't. It was like, oh, I'm ready for the couch. No energy, all this. But that 10 minutes every day became 15 minutes. And then 15 minutes became 30 minutes. And the weeks passed. And now I'm sitting there for 2-3 hours a day. And more time passes. And suddenly I'm doing 4 hours a day or 8 hours a day. And then by the end of the thing, I'm rocking and rolling like my old self, you know, 8, 10, 12-hour days until I finish the book. That's it. You know, writers always get asked, where do you get your ideas? That's where I got my idea. All it took was a quadruple bypass.
And you too can be a writer.
Yeah. You think it's easy? That's it.
How do I follow that?
You don't want to follow that one. I don't recommend it.
Well, so it's interesting because I had the UFO piece is something that I remember when that footage came out, and I kind of had the same response, but I didn't connect that to Josh, right? And so Josh and his buddy are putting together this podcast, which is pretty out there stuff, right? UFOs and
that was really important because, see, automatically he is someone who has no credibility. He is dismissed by the society at large.
his parents.
His own parents dismiss him. You know, his father, he's estranged from his father. His father thinks he's thrown his life away. His mother, who is overprotective, is also an overmother, but she, of course, believes many of the same things that Josh believes, which is maybe where he got it from. She believes in government conspiracies too. She suspects that artificial intelligences monitor all of our phone calls and compile data on us. And she probably believes that the pharmaceutical companies put nanobots in, you know, vaccines. Because Josh's family background is very important to the story. I'm going to be leery here because I don't want to give away, like big plot moves that will be interesting or not. But I worked out his whole history, his family history, before I began writing the book because I wanted I wanted all the layers to add up. But what was important to me isn't that Josh believes fringe conspiracy theories. What's important to me is that he is a person who is dismissed by everyone except for one person. And when Josh finally does, thanks to that one person, have something real, something true and solid, a crime, he knows that he must have absolute 100% incontrovertible proof before he can actually come forward with it, because no one's going to believe him otherwise. Warrior for justice. And as soon as I had most of that stuff in my head and Josh was alive for me, I mean, I just knew that's an Elvis Cole novel. I had to put Elvis and Josh together because isn't that what a detective does? Right. I mean,
right.
Detectives are truth seekers.
So one of the things that I love, there's this moment when, and I don't think I'm giving anything away here, when Elvis actually listens to this podcast, right? And this is something that you in particular, I think, do better than almost any other crime writers. You really are generous with your characters, and you really are leaning into their humanity. So everybody has dismissed Josh Schumacher, his parents, society at large, and Elvis has looked him up and down and sort of, has decided he's made some questionable life choices, but then listens to this podcast. And it's like, he's actually pretty good at this. Like, you give him that, right? And so why is that kind of and you've made moves like that over and over and over again. So why is that humanity of, I mean, there are writers who would make fun of him. There are writers who would, belittle him. You're bringing out the best in this kind of screwed up kid. And so why is that important to you as a writer? What is that about for you?
Well, because I think everyone matters. And it's philosophy that I want Elvis to have, and he does have. People are always more than they seem. If I had to specify it in a way, for Elvis Cole, I guess I would say his philosophy would be see more, judge less. So I look for opportunities to express that humanity. I think Elvis Cole, for example, is a very humane person. And so that's why this book, the other books, future books, Elvis, this is a moment where Elvis is seeing more. He's not judging. He's looking for clues when he listens to a couple of podcast recordings that Josh has made. He doesn't expect anything other than he's trying to find clues. But by pointing out that Elvis ends up actually thinking, wow, this kid is actually good at this. By seeing Josh suddenly in that light, I think it makes everything deeper and richer. It makes Elvis Cole a more worthwhile human being. And also, I think it's admirable of him. Which I would say about any of us. I think it's a good trait to have, to see more of what's really there and to judge a lot less.
That's very nice.
Thank you. Are we done?
We could be. Well, so we haven't talked about, so there's Lucy Chenier, who's Elvis's lost love, returns in this book, and we haven't seen her for quite a while.
Yes, correct.
And it was a real surprise to me, not because I'd forgotten about her, but because I had, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm remembering this correctly, but it seemed to me that the way that you had left this with Elvis was that, and we see this with Joe too, is that they don't really get to fall in love, right? They don't really get to have a romantic life because of this proximity to violence. I mean, it's always following them both around. And so the fact that Elvis might actually, that this might become something again, it's so tantalizing, but so and dangerous, right? It's fraught with, because she is vulnerable in a way that Elvis and Joe are not vulnerable. So remind us of who she is to Elvis, and you know why that relationship is so complicated, and why you wanted to bring her back.
So in my fifth novel, Voodoo River, Elvis Cole goes to Louisiana and he meets this attorney named Lucy Chenier, who has an 8-year-old son. She's divorced. And Elvis and Lucy fall in love. And they actually fall in love. And Lucy changes her life to come out here, or come out here. Yeah, we're all in Los Angeles now. To go to Los Angeles, to be with Elvis Cole, to be closer. They're not moving in together at this point, but she gets a job in Los Angeles. She takes Ben, they go to LA, but then almost immediately bad things happen because of Elvis's job at first. And then in a book I wrote called The Last Detective, because of a crime that was actually engineered by Ben's stepfather in the hopes of making Elvis Cole look bad and make Lucy turn against him. Even though Elvis Cole uncovers it all, and the truth comes out there, you know, Richard Chenier, the boy's real father, her ex-husband, actually does win out in that regard, because Lucy just says, I cannot have this kind of violence. And I have to protect my son, Ben, and he's been through this horrible trauma, and I'm going back, you know, he needs to be around his family, his friends. So she takes the boy and she goes back to Louisiana. And that's where their relationship stayed for several books. And I would occasionally do like the phone call. Lucy and Elvis would talk on the phone. But they weren't technically a couple anymore. And you know, I think a couple of times I alluded to, you know, Elvis would go to Baton Rouge where they lived, because Elvis still loved the boy, and actually Elvis still loved Lucy. Lucy's the one who terminated their relationship. Right. I mean, Elvis, you know, what a pit bull that guy is. He's hung on with this woman for all these books. So now we come up to now, and you know, Ben's grown a little bit, and let me put it this way, because I don't want to give too much away about what happens in this book with Lucy and Elvis, but maybe it's, again, I'll go back to this. I'll never know this. The Lucy story that's in this book was not in the book I was working on prior to my heart surgery. So now I have the event and I'm recovering, and I just had this overwhelming feeling as I developed this book that I really wanted to give Elvis Cole a shot again. I mean, one of the ongoing themes in all of my books is, whether it's specifically stated or you simply have to intuit it, is Elvis Cole's always been searching for a family. I mean, he's a guy, I mean, Elvis would love to be married. He would love to have kids. And because his own childhood, I think, was so unstable and unpredictable, but he would love that. He's just it's never happened. He thought it would happen with Lucy. You know, and I wanted to give him that chance again. So I spent a lot of time thinking about them, her, Ben, their individual personal stories and their group dynamic. And I said, I have to open that door for them. So I did.
Well, I really don't want you to give anything away because I think this is one of the really interesting parts of this book. But did you have a sense of how it would end?
In this book,
Yeah.
let me tell you an interesting thing about that. Because again, writers like to talk about process.
Right. How we work, because we all think we're crazy, and we want to see if the other guy is equally crazy or just crazy in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. So you'll appreciate this. And it's going to be tough. I apologize to you, but I you'll not talk privately later, but because I can't be too specific because then it gives everything away. But so I'm an outline, right? I figure a lot of stuff out before I begin. Everything comes from character. Character comes first, and then slowly over many weeks and months, I come up with a story and I kind of shape it until it's the story. But before I actually begin writing the book, I know where I'm going, and I know the bases I have to tag to get there. Right? That's a good way to put it. So I write the book. And this is one of those rare times where by the time I finished the book, I had written all the Elvis Lucy scenes as I originally envisioned them. And I knew they weren't working. They weren't working for me. I wasn't being honest enough with the characters and with what they were saying to each other. Because you imagine, see, I think of these as real people. I mean, I'm not like off my meds, but in my head, I have to kind of live their lives, right? In order to present it in a way that's involving and true and whatever. So they have the history that I described earlier, this long distance thing. It's all been her call. He's been respectful of it. Yes, he's dated a couple of women since. She's dated some guys, but he, she's it for him, man. I mean, Lucy's the one. Whatever you think of her, Elvis loves this woman. So you can just imagine that over the course of those years, there's a lot of resentments that fill up. There's a lot of unexpressed feelings that pile up. And I had not dealt with all that the first time through, because in the figuring it out, I just wanted to come at this more like, oh man, Elvis is happy way. And it was wrong. It was dishonest. And I didn't know that until I had written those scenes. And even as I was writing them, I'm so stubborn, I kept writing. Even as I was writing them, I said, this just doesn't ring right. This just, it's not right. And so when I finished, by the time I finished, I knew what I had to do already. It's like I was making notes on the side. Oh no, she should say. Oh no, he should say. So I went back and I rewrote the whole thing and expanded it enormously. So in the book that you read now, there's actually much more Elvis Lucy Ben than there was in the first draft, because it seemed to take on a life of its own and demand to be more, demanded to be a bigger piece of the book.
Well, that's how you know you're really onto something, right? When it sort of takes off by itself, when it does something bigger than you had anticipated.
Well, I consider it a point of personal weakness. No, that was a joke.
Are you like who's the Nabokov who said that his characters were galley slaves that should do everything exactly what he wants and nothing more?
Well, no, no. There's always a measure of, it's not real until it's real. Meaning, you can think about it all you want and make all the notes you want, but when you're sitting there and you're actually writing, there's a different level of life that comes to it. And you are, you are in control. It is your choice what to put on the page. But you'd be smart to listen to them.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. So one of the other elements of this, so we've talked about Josh and we've talked about Lucy. So there's another character named Skylar. So she is a sex worker. She's been a porn star and a dancer and is also an escort. So and again, it's that humanity piece, right? We really see her, and we really there's nothing salacious about it. There's nothing titillating about it. It's you really get a sense of what that life is. So what got you interested in that piece, and how did you do that research? That was an innocent question. That was a perfectly innocent question.
Their minds are dirty.
Yeah.
You know what? I wanted, as I thought about Josh's program, his podcast, he's into all these, unacceptable, non-mainstream topics, right? He'll do a show on, big pharma and nanobots. He'll do a show on Area 51. He'll do a show on reverse engineered, recovered alien technology and blah, blah, blah. But he'll also do, he'll do podcasts on alternative medicine. He'll do podcasts on the adult film industry, on sex workers, everything that regular media won't touch, not really. And that's what Josh does. That's where his interests lie. So I figured, as I thought about him and what kind of situation I needed him to be in, and ways he would discover something, the notion of a sex worker who would have access to secret information just began to feel natural. And the more I thought about her, I didn't want to, okay, here's the prostitute. And she's, remember in the book, though, she still does prostitution on the side. She self-identifies as an artist. And that was an important notion of her character, that she's someone who's actually trying to transition out of this other life and be a gallery artist. That's her, that if you asked her, what do you do? She would say, I'm a painter.
Well, yeah, the sex work is a means to an end.
Yeah, it's just a means to an end. And, these things all started to fit together like a puzzle, which is what usually happens. And if it doesn't happen, then I'm on the wrong track. But who she is, what she does, why she was able to do what I needed her to do, and why Josh would be interested in her is important. And it was also, I found interesting to me because I didn't present them the way they would typically be presented. They're not romantically involved. They're simply friends. She likes him, as a guy, and he likes her, but not male-female romantic thing. They're just these two people. One happens to be this beautiful young woman, and one's Josh. And that seems to me anyway, what was striving for is to give a greater depth to their relationship.
So there's something real there, as opposed to something, I don't know. It would have been an easy choice to have them be romantically involved.
Yes, it would have been easy. That would have been the easy choice.
Yeah.
I didn't want that. I always look for a way to make it more interesting and have greater resonance with a larger story, and hopefully with people who read it.
Well, that's always the goal.
Yeah.
So how are we doing here on? All right. Any thoughts out here? Any questions from the audience? Oh, yes, sir.
When you say when I was writing initially, you mean at the beginning of my career? No. I mean, listen, I like all that stuff. I love all that stuff. But my real antecedents are all the novels that I read. Yeah, I mean, look, of course, those the early films were kind of like pot boilers to me. I mostly saw them on black and white TVs because we didn't have really where I'm from in Louisiana at that time. We didn't have like art houses where you could go. When I moved to LA, there were art houses and you could go see big screen prints, 35 millimeter prints or whatnot of the old movies. And I certainly did that. If I was going to, the movies that I guess I liked the most were like Billy Friedkin movies and To Live and Die in LA, which I just consider a great crime film with the greatest chase of all time. You can have Bullet, but To Live and Die in LA was terrific. A lot of those things. I love the imagery. I love the beat. I love the energy in pictures like that. Have I been influenced by them? I think I've been influenced probably by everything I've ever consumed. And I think most every writer or filmmaker or artist, graphic artist has been. Yeah, I don't see how you not be, even the bad stuff, even the stuff that you look at and you go, oh man, what a yawn. Or like, boy, that really is terrible. I think that influences you too. You just suck it all in and the Calvin Hobbes transmogrifier happens, and you do your thing. You bet.
Well, let's talk about LA for a minute. So it really is an ongoing character, and in your non-Joe and Elvis books, one of the things that really ties them together is LA. So what is it that you love so much about LA, both as a resident and as a writer?
Oh, well, so many things. LA's beautiful. It's not when you get up close and put your nose on the pavement, because then it looks like just any other city anywhere. All cities look the same if you're standing on a sidewalk. But LA allows perspective because it's so enormous and it has high spots. It's this huge, enormous basin bordered on the north by this huge, enormous series of valleys. And it's split across the top by the spine of a mountain range, Santa Monica Mountains. And one of the first things I did when I moved there is the same homage that everyone does who moves there, drove immediately to Mulholland Drive and drove the length back and forth along Mulholland Drive, looking at the views where it just stretches out forever. Do it during the daytime, do it at night. Oh my God, it's so beautiful at night where I endlessly can describe that. It's like magic. What I also, I think, love the most about Los Angeles is that it is, in fact, this word has become loaded these days to mean a very specific thing. It's not specific. It is loaded. It is a city for dreamers. People go from all over the planet, from every city in America. People go to Los Angeles to make their dreams come true. And I don't care if you're going there to be an actor, a musician, a director, an engineer who wants to build plastic spaceships up in the desert. A real estate baron, it doesn't matter. People go to LA. It's a magnet for dreamers, which of course makes it a beautiful canvas for crime. Because anytime you have so many people risking so much, putting so much on the line, it's great. Also, I like the food. It is the diversity of Los Angeles is not a detriment. It is a beautiful one. It's like having the more colors you have on your palette. If you're a painter, the more choices you have. It's fantastic.
I feel like the taco quotient really went up in this book.
There's cooking in the book. Listen, this book contains cooking. If that offends you, don't buy this book. People ask me, why does Elvis cook? I said, because I cook.
And people cook.
People cook. People cook. I cook Elvis cooks. Elvis actually commits the act of cooking in this book. Be warned.
Those are some of my favorite scenes though, because to see Elvis at home, right? You don't see Sam Spade at home. in quite that same way, right? And it humanizes him, and it helps you see him as a person.
That's my goal. You know, he's an actual living human being. Now, of course, he may cook. You could write a scene where somebody's cooking, and it might just be so boring that people close the thing and they go in and they eat a mayonnaise sandwich. Or you could make it really interesting. My goal is to make it really interesting. My goal is to have that scene so that it actually speaks not only to the character, but speaks to the moment and the rhythm of the words and the actions that the character is doing actually enriches the scene, that the content of the scene. There's a reason for every word on the page. It isn't just because I'm typing and I got to get, I really do need another 3 paragraphs here. That's not it. There's an absolute reason that every word is on the page. So when Elvis Cole cooks, I think it adds an enormous amount.
Do people give you grief about that? Why does Elvis cook? Is that a question people actually ask you?
Yeah, I get asked that all the time. No, but they don't mean it detrimentally. I think they're just curious because maybe, I don't know. I think people will say, I've been asked that question probably 6 times on this tour, but I'm asked it all the time. Why does Elvis Cole cook? He's got to eat. Sure. What I mean, here's Elvis Cole detective. So what's he eat? Oh, all he does is he opens a can of Vienna sausage and stands there with a toothpick. I mean, guy's got to eat. If you're presenting this man, he's got a life. He's got to eat. He cooks. He can eat a diner all the time. Here he is at a diner. Oh, everything is shit. Life is shit. Give me my gruel. Perpetually unhappy. Elvis Cole cooks.
That's not Elvis, though.
That's not Elvis. Elvis likes to cook. Also, he finds that I'm sure he lives alone. He's got a cat. I used to live alone. I cooked. It's a great thing to do at the end of the day, right? It's as creative as writing, by the way. I'm a big fan of cooks. I find it every bit as creative and as individual as writing or painting or taking photographs. You're creating something. Not only are you creating something that can always be varied, but you're actually going to consume it and it's going to make you feel good.
Well, and cooking for other people is a whole separate thing, right? So there's care for others in that.
Care for others.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to make you happy. It's important for me to make you happy, please you. So what a gift. That's a gift. But the trick, whether he cooks or not, the trick is to make it entertaining. And hopefully to make either you're going to be entertained by it, amused by it, or you're not going to notice it. So it's like a triumvirate, right? It's writing. A large part of writing is editing, and I know this from my film days. The trick of every film editor is to be invisible. If you notice the editing, they failed in the main. So those kinds of things, we don't want people to notice them. We want them to just enjoy it.
So this book too, the thing that struck me reading it is that, I mean, your work has always been really sort of crisp and streamlined, but I feel like this book is even more so than in the past. And it's hard for me as a writer. It's hard for me to read for pleasure, to get lost in quite the same way as I used to.
Yeah, me too.
But so I was looking at all of your transitions, all the ways that you got people places, all the ways that, and I just was amazed at the sort of how clean and quick it all is. And so that's something that you really think a lot about.
I do. I think a lot about it. Maybe I'm getting better. See, by the way, pay attention to what Nick just said, because what he just said, those words could come out of my mouth too. People always ask us, well, who do you read? What do you read? And what I've noticed over time is that, though I still read, I read a lot, but most of what I read is nonfiction. And the reason, again, is because of what Nick just described. When I'm reading fiction, I'm always, part of me is working.
Yeah.
Right. I pick, like, how'd she get in there? How'd she get out of there? how did he screw that up? Or man, how did he do that? That was amazing.
Or why do we like this character so
E-
much? Or
exactly.
yeah.
Any question you can come up with, that part of the brain is working. And if you're working, you're not relaxing. You know, I'm like anybody. I just want to, when it's that time of the day, I just want to kick back on the couch or in bed and just have it take me away. And it's more and more difficult for that to happen when I'm reading a work of fiction. Nonfiction, I am so not engaged in that manner.
Yeah.
If it's nonfiction, I can just let myself go and fall into it, and it's great.
I'll recommend a couple of titles for you. I don't know if you read them or not, but that totally, I just lost track of the world for a while. The 5 Decembers by James Kestrel won the Edgar. A World War II era, right at the cusp of World War II, and the writing is gorgeous, fantastic.
Sorry.
And the other is a guy named Chuck Hogan's new book called Gangland, which is 70s era Chicago mafiosos.
These are nonfiction.
No, they are not.
They're
nonfiction.
novels.
They're
Okay.
novels,
All right.
but they are.
So there's nothing in them worth studying.
No, they are so good that
That was humor.
that you will get lost. That you
Cool,
will
great.
stop examining them and you'll just read them.
Great. I look forward to
So
trying.
there you go.
Right. Yeah.
All right. And the in the back.
I take no breaks. I dive right back into it. But usually by the time I finish something, first of all, I revise as I write. I have to stop myself because, you know, otherwise you just write the first chapter forever. Right. So I revise enough to keep going, leaving imperfections behind. Got to make notes, right? You got to do this, you know, page 47, blah, blah, blah. And then when I'm finished, when I get to the end, I gave the example of the Lucy Elvis Ben subplot in this book. I immediately knew what I needed to do. I got to the end of the book. I immediately started doing it. But it's that way with everything I write. I don't wait. I'm a really good, I've always believed this about myself, whether it's true or not, I can't tell you honestly, but I think I'm a good self-editor. And so by the time I get there, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I actually work the same way. I when I get stuck, I go back and I rework what I've done. I kind of clean up what I've got and I make the changes that I have noted in the text, and then I can go forward again. So usually by the time I get to the end, I have another document with sort of the uncompleted edits. But by the time by the time I've written the end of the last chapter, I need about a week to go back and make it ready to send off. So it's again, I know people who will write a first draft in 2 months and then wait a month and then spend 4 months on the revisions. That's just not how I work.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, no.
Other questions?
Yes, sir. You? At first I did. Yeah, I listen, I was a kid. I was a baby writer when I got involved in TV.
You never went to college, right?
No, I did go to college. I didn't study writing. Okay. I studied engineering. But when I got involved in TV, I was really blessed, and it was of course what I moved to Los Angeles to get involved in TV and movies. I worked for some great shows.
Put your mic up there.
Oh, sorry. I worked for some great shows. Quincy, Hill Street Blues, Cagney and Lacey, Miami Vice, The Equalizer, Beretta, all these. I'm like a Trivial Pursuit question for 80s television.
Nobody's heard of those
Yeah,
shows.
no one's
Yeah.
heard of those shows. And it was really exciting. And I did like it a lot. But it began to be, it was clear to me after I did that almost exclusive for about 11 years. I think it was 11 or 12. But I really wanted to write books. So at a point in there, I decided to start trying to teach myself to write novels, which I did. But the TV thing, it's a complete, writing is writing. Of course, drama is drama, whether, you're writing a script or you're writing a play or you're writing a novel or short story. But I wanted to do my own thing. That's a collaborative thing. Again, some of my closest, dearest friends today were friends I made then, in the writer's room. But I didn't want to spend the rest of my life in a writer's room where it's a group effort. I wanted to do, build my world and do it. That's why and that's what I ended up doing. Maybe this is a hard thing too. I don't know, but through the first 22 novels, I was approached an uncountable number of times by different people to buy the film rights or option the film rights or whatever, including some super significant players. And it was always a flat no. Wouldn't even consider it. But in the last couple of years, I've begun to think, and by the way, not just because I'm obstinate, I had really personally good reasons for not wanting to go that route.
You lose control of it. It's not yours anymore.
Right. There's a lot of really good reasons, and I could list them. You certainly lose control. But in the last couple of years, I've begun to think maybe the time is right. I don't have a definite answer for this right now. But I think I'm more open to the notion that maybe something worthwhile could be done. Maybe part of that is because there's been in the past 2 or 3 years, there's been so much. I mean, there's always been really good stuff on a tube or on the streaming platforms, but especially in the last 2 or 3 years, it's like magic. There's really been some, amazing acting talent that's been willing to do these things and do these things. Some amazing filmmakers who've gotten involved, and some outstanding, really rich, terrific product. And I look at all this stuff just like you do, and maybe that's part of it. I thought, well, maybe it's Elvis, just like it's time for Lucy to come back in some fashion. Maybe it's time for me to take a shot with that. That's the best answer I can give you at this point. I don't know if, like on next Thursday, I could say, hell no. In the back. The question is, has Elvis Cole had a real life person like me in his life? No, of course not. No. I know a variety of people who would be in the ballpark, but Joe is a fictional creation. He is not he's not based on a single person, nor is Elvis.
Something personal.
Yeah, no. Do I have definite plans for it as I sit here tonight? No. But I've written 4 standalone novels. the answer to that question is if the idea comes along that demands I write it, meaning that's, you know, it lights me up so much that I want to write it, I'll write it. It's not ruled out. You know, that's what happened with, you know, Maggie, the dog, the suspect, the canine book. That's what happened with 2 Minute Rule, all the others, Hostage, Demolition Angel. It's not like I sat down, because here's what exactly did not happen. When I'm going along, writing my books in my life and career, stop an Elvis Cole book and say, you know, I really got to come up with a standalone novel. That's not how it happens for me. Some writers maybe yes, not for me. I'm just going along and then I get this idea and it burns a hole in my pocket and I got to get it out. And so if that happens again, great. And if it doesn't, you know, whatever comes, I'll write.
So I think. Last question.
No, I saw hands.
Your choice. You got two back
Oh,
there.
here we go. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. How I choose the names of my who? Non-recurring characters, a variety of ways. Always, the name has to add something to the book. B, the name has to be appropriate to the nature of the character. Even when, for example, occasionally I'll name a character after a friend of mine, or, you know, sometimes I'll donate a character naming to some charity and people pay money to have a character name, use their name on a character. Regardless of the source like that, I don't use the name unless it's a character that when a reader reads it, it's appropriate. If I'm just hunting for random names, I name ideas, rosters for MLB teams is great. That's no lie. I open a sports page and I read down the roster lists, or go online and do it. Basketball teams, football teams. These are just random names though, remember? So I'll see several possibilities and it's got to be appropriate to the character. But anyway, that's kind of how it happens. You're welcome.
Yeah, I keep a list on my phone. When I hear a good name, I just write it down.
Right on your phone?
Yeah.
How do you find the list after that?
It's called names. It's a list called names, and so I pull
You
it
got to
up.
show me how to do that,
I
man.
will. I will.
I'm a Luddite.
It's handy when you're out for a walk, and you could have a good idea.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. All right.
Well, this is a bunch of fun. Thank you guys all for coming out on a Thursday night and entertaining us.
Yeah. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate y'all coming out tonight.